Okay, so once again, thank you. Welcome everyone to the March meeting of Central Park United Neighbors. My name is Liz Stallnicker. I am the board president. And without further ado, we will start our meeting with our mission statement. Matt Blackburn, you can read it.
CPUN is the Registered Neighborhood Organization, RNO, for the Central Park community. We provide a working forum for the residents of Central Park to participate in creating, developing, and fostering a vibrant urban community dedicated to social equity, environmental responsibility, and economic opportunity. At our monthly meetings, we facilitate the discussion of key issues with neighbors, engage in proactive problem prevention and amiable problem solving. CPUN is committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming environment for all members of the community.
Also this page.
Oh, there's a second page. All right. Our mission is the betterment of the city of Denver by providing a forum for the residents living in Central Park to discuss and resolve issues, a network of communication, a means of acting on matters of importance to the community as a whole. We promote public service, civil civic discourse, collective efficacy, and are run by an all volunteer board of Central Park residents and is a 501c3.
Thanks, Matt. And then just a quick overview of tonight's agenda. We're in our community hour. So we'll be starting with community partner updates. Somebody unmute. Okay. And then after our community partner updates, we'll move on to our guest speakers on the Xcel franchise agreement. Denise Maes on behalf of Xcel Energy and Jeff Ackerman on behalf of Together Colorado. After that, we'll have a 5-minute break and then begin our board hour with the treasurer's report and just an update on emails we've received since our last monthly meeting. And then I wanted to spend some time, a good chunk of our agenda actually talking about and problem solving around how we as RNO, if you can mute the mic iPhone 16, if, Brian, are you able to? Just trying to. Okay. Just to talk about the mailbox break-ins, that has been an ongoing issue for a few years. And we've talked about it offline and kind of at different points. But I think that we need to have some dedicated time for a full board discussion about our next steps and what role we as the RNO can play in advocating around that issue. And then we'll have board member committee updates, INC update, David, if you have any, and then a look ahead to events and meetings in April and May. And then I set aside time for the welcome bags, but all of the welcome bags are going to one place and Kathy is taking them. So we'll just have that time. So thank you very much. So without further ado, I'll jump into community partner updates. Just a second. And there's a conflicting meeting with the City Council District 8 is doing a budgeting town hall right now. So Jesse was not able to attend our meeting. But the main update from the City Council office is that they're forming their community panels for budget input. So if anybody who's, participating on the Zoom or anybody who's in the room, part of our board, feel free to reach out to Jesse Carey in District 8 if you'd like to participate. The meeting commitments for it, March 25th, so a week from tomorrow, there is an introductory Zoom meeting, and then there will be 3 in-person meetings on April 4th, April 25th, and May 2nd. And I don't know if anybody who has participated in those before, maybe I'm looking at you, Heather. I think you, David. If anybody wanted to just kind of talk about a little bit about their experience, but it's largely getting resident input into the budget priorities that the council office will be bringing forward for the 2027 budget process.
And they provide a lot of education about how the budget process works, like the timeline and the different phases. It's a lot of information, but also helpful as well as an opportunity to get.
Yeah, so I would encourage if anybody is interested in this to get involved that way. I'll share out this information in the newsletter that is going out on Monday, right? Okay. All right, and then I see Lieutenant Hines is on. I'm going to stop sharing my screen if you'd like to give the District 5 update, Lieutenant Hines.
Yeah, Liz, thank you. I appreciate you guys having us on tonight. For anybody on the call or in the room there tonight who doesn't know me, I'm Kevin Hines, and I'm a lieutenant with District 5, responsible for District 5 Sector 1, which is all of the Central Park neighborhood within the bounds of Denver. Couple updates for things going on that we've been asked about. For starters, we have seen a little bit of a rise in burglaries, particularly garage burglaries on residences. So this is a type of crime that we've always kind of seen in the background here in Central Park. It's a nice neighborhood. People leave their garage doors open on nice days, and it takes a burglar just a few seconds to walk by and grab something. I think the reason we're seeing a little bit of a rise right now has a lot to do with the weather. We've kind of had an unseasonably warm and nice winter, as most of you have noticed, and more people are leaving their garage doors open in winter than we normally see. So seasonally, we've seen a little bit of a rise in those burglaries. Our overall burglary stats maybe look a little bit larger than what we're actually seeing in terms of garage burglaries, though. And one of the reasons for that is that we have started using the burglary statute when we're dealing with people who are repeat offenders in retail crime. If somebody has been trespassed and given an area restriction from going into a store and they go back in there and commit another crime, it meets the statutory definition of a burglary. So some cases we've had recently have qualified as burglaries on that. It does show a rise in those stats, but we have seen a little bit of an uptick in those garage burglaries as well. So the short story on that is please close your garage doors. If you see your neighbor's garage doors open, remind them of that. It's a simple thing we all tend to do. We get comfortable in our neighborhood, and we just don't want to invite criminals into the area. So I know I've harped on that before here, but since I'm seeing it in the stats, I figured I'd warn everybody ahead of this really unseasonably warm week we're supposed to be having up ahead. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the shelter location over by 4040 Quebec Street. It's a subject of frequent discussion. I get a lot of residents asking me about activities out there. For those of you who aren't aware, they've been operating with a new service provider out there since the start of January. A company called Urban Alchemy has been contracted with the city to run that shelter. So far, we've had a really great working relationship with them. They've been very responsive to concerns that the police department has brought up and addressing issues that we're seeing out there. We do tend to get a lot of calls out there immediately following the end of a cold weather event. The reason for that is that the shelter does serve as a cold weather shelter when the temperature typically drops below 25 degrees. And after the cold weather sheltering closes, the folks who are there on a temporary basis tend to filter out into the community. We receive a lot of phone calls and emails about that when that happens. Just so you guys kind of understand the process that the Denver Police Department's using. First, we're relying on our partners from Urban Alchemy. They actually have an outreach team at the shelter that goes out into the neighborhood and tries to provide services to individuals who are experiencing homelessness and might need some help. We also have our own homeless outreach team officers with the Denver Police Department. They are aware of the laws and kind of the particulars of dealing with issues that affect people within that community, and we'll try to provide them resources as well. And of course, in cases where people are not accepting resources or are blatantly breaking the law, we have the enforcement option as well. When it comes to enforcement, one of the big complaints we've been getting out of the shelter is that there is a rise in retail crime in the surrounding areas, such as Quebec Square and Northfield Mall. One thing we've been doing for a couple months now is monitoring the trends that we're seeing. Our partners at Walmart have been helping us look at some of those trends. And we're trying kind of a novel idea out there starting this month. Walmart has identified a number of, I'd say, hygiene and wellness products that are being stolen by folks who are experiencing homelessness. And they're going to be setting up a pantry within 4040 Quebec to provide some of those items as donations to individuals who are part of the program and trying to get back on their feet. Our hope there is that we can take away some of the need or incentive to engage in those low-level shoplifts of like personal care items, and that'll give us a chance to focus more of our efforts on the folks who are shoplifting things like televisions and tools and bigger ticket items. So we're going to be monitoring that. It's a cooperative endeavor between District 5, Urban Alchemy, and Walmart. So it's kind of a trial program, but we're going to see what we can do with it in hopes that it improves the quality of life for the folks who are in that transitional housing situation and also improves the quality of life for everybody in the community. While I have you guys here, I do want to mention that we have our monthly commanders meeting coming up on Thursday. It'll be at our station at 12025 East 45th Avenue, and that is at 6 p.m. During that meeting, we'll do more of a detailed dive into our statistics and spend an hour or so answering any questions you might have about things that are going on with the Denver Police Department. I also want to take a moment here in case any of you haven't met Officer Woolley yet. She is serving as our new community resource officer out here in Sector 1 of District 5. I know she's talked to a number of you, but in case you haven't met her yet, Laura, do you have a moment that you could say hello? I can see her on the call, but I'm not sure if she's having trouble unmuting here. Well, that may not be working. One other thing I just wanted to bring up real quick is, Liz, I think I saw you mention that there's some discussion you're wanting to have about mailbox thefts later in the meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that very briefly from our standpoint, just because we may not be able to be on by the time the board meeting happens. The Denver Police Department is sort of secondary to the U.S. Postal Service in terms of prosecuting theft from mailboxes and things of that nature. But we have been working with the postal inspectors to figure out how we can combine our resources and efforts to reduce those crimes. There are a number of ways that we can enforce city and state level statutes that we might be able to apply to mailboxes that the U.S. Postal Service cannot enforce. And it also allows us to address some of the crimes that wouldn't rise to a high enough financial level to get a federal investigation involved. So we're exploring some ways that we can tap into their resources and our ability to use city and state statutes to try to address some of those problems. We have some operations we've planned to do with them coming up to target some areas where we're seeing the mailboxes. Typically what we're seeing is communal mailboxes in apartment buildings, condos, and multi-unit ones that are placed outside that are being targeted. So we will hit those with state and local statutes, and then in cases where individuals are successful in perpetrating financial crimes, which is the number one motivation for breaking into those boxes, we can rely on the U.S. Postal Service to try to pursue federal prosecutions on those. So I just wanted to touch on that briefly since I saw it on your agenda, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to still be on here by the time that comes up in the board meeting. But I won't carry on and take up too much time in the meeting here, but if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them before you move on.
That's very helpful. I have one question, but before I ask it, does anybody else have any questions?
I was gonna ask if there's any way we can help support the hygiene product pantry.
Yeah, that's a great question. And one thing I will bring up is that we are having an event with Walmart and other business partners out in Quebec Square on April 25th. It's kind of a spring kickoff community meeting out there. We're still getting an idea of who's going to be out there. Denver Police, obviously. We're going to have Denver Fire, a number of other vendors and partners. And one of the things we have talked about is having Urban Alchemy set up a table out there, and I think they're planning to do so. And we were just getting engaged in discussions with them about how they might be able to encourage and or accept donations from folks who would like to give donations. So as we find out a little bit more on that, I'll be happy to share it. And I think it's a great way for community members who want to kick in and help to do so.
Lieutenant, I got my mute off. I'm sorry, everyone. Hi, I'm Officer Woolley, and I am your community resource officer. Urban Alchemy is going to have a booth or tent out at this event on April 25th, and they are going to accept household goods, hygiene items, pretty much anything that you can think of, they're going to be accepting. So you're welcome to bring those out and donate it to them at that time.
Is there, I guess, we will typically share this information out in our newsletter and our Facebook page. Do you know if there's a flyer for that event, or will there be a flyer for that event?
I do have that, and I can share that with you. You can send me an email. Then I can get that information to you, and I can get other flyers to you also that you can put in your bags when you have these meetings and such.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
I just sent it to you.
Okay. Oh, well, Jack already sent it, so thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. We'll
Thanks,
get
Jack.
that information. Lieutenant Hines, I just had one question, kind of, it's related to the mailboxes, and it's more just in the conversations you've had with, or the DPD has had with the postal inspectors or with the USPS. Has there been any mention of rekeying the master keys? Because it seems, or our understanding as residents is that a master key has been copied, and that is how the thefts are, like that's how the break-ins are happening. And I was just wondering if you might have some information on kind of longer term solution, like longer term interventions that the postal inspectors might be considering.
Yeah, Liz, that's actually a great question, and it's a question that has a rather complicated answer associated with it. And I'll do my best to paraphrase what I was told from USPS on this. But the answer is kind of yes and kind of no. So mailboxes are keyed with what's called an arrow key. That's the industry term for the key that's used to open the mailboxes. And because the mail service services so many everything from the blue boxes to these community multi boxes and everything else, there are tens of thousands of units that are served by any given arrow key. Now, possession of that arrow key is actually a federal offense in and of itself. So they are very closely guarded keys because of the fact that they provide access to the mailboxes. There are several ways that those have come into the hands of criminals over the years. One, as you said, is copying a key. Another is stealing a key. So occasionally those keys do get stolen. From what I'm told, the long-term plan with the post office is they are starting to switch out to a key system that involves an electronic type of key where they're able to, I think, I haven't seen the system myself in person, but I get the idea that it's similar to like a chipped key in a car where, if you don't have the right programmed code into the key, it won't open the box. So that is a long-term plan that they are looking at, but obviously it's an extremely expensive thing to implement. From what they were indicating, although they do see some no force cases right now in Denver with arrow keys or fraudulent arrow keys being used to open boxes. A lot of them that we're seeing are boxes being pried or popped open, as opposed to forged or stolen keys being used. So Obviously, I don't want to speak out of turn here. That is within the purview of the U.S. Postal Service rather than the Denver Police Department. But that is kind of the backstory I was given when we ask about that, is that rekeying with a physical key is very hard to do just because of the thousands of units they serve. But the long-term plan is to switch to more of an electronic key type of system. And in the meantime, if we catch somebody who is in possession of an arrow key or a forged arrow key, that's another one of those situations where we'll be reaching out to the postal inspectors and they'll be pursuing felony federal charges on the person.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Right. Not seeing any other questions here, so I think we'll move to the MCA. I see Diane is here. Lights.
Hi. Well, we are gearing up for our summer. We're getting ready to go. We have first egg scramble coming up on the 28th of the month at runway 35. And we should be distributing about 12,000 eggs. Wow. And it's usually a fun morning. And you've never seen an area cleaned up faster than the egg hunt. So, because there's not really a hunt, they're just out in the open. So they disappear quickly.
It's no fun.
What?
It's no fun.
It's hilarious is what it is. They go quickly. And then we're working on the final draft of our aquatics brochure, which will be hitting homes here in the next couple of weeks. And that has all of our information on lessons and summer programs. If you want detailed information, please go to our website at mca80238.com. That's the best place to get the information and the quickest way to get our information. We are this Friday, we will be reaching out to our returning lifeguards and summer staff. We typically hire about 165 to 175 summer staff. And so we will be starting that process with our rehires first, and then we will open it up to new hires down the road once we know what our numbers of returning people are. So that's kind of where we are right at this moment with things going on. You'll see ball fields getting lined, soccer fields being lined, they're rented and ready to go. And you'll see all kinds of things happening. Yeah.
What's the youngest age that a kid can work for the MCA?
We do require 16 years old, but we do have a junior lifeguard program that starts at 14.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Yes, actually, we can share out the egg scramble information. So as you have the weekly MCA email that goes out, but we can yes, MCA programming in there too. All right, thank you. And then I believe we have Layla. We have Daria with Sam Gary, if you'd like to give the library updates.
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. I have just a few things. The library will be operating on delayed opening of 11 a.m. That's coming up next week on Tuesday, March 24th. And then March 30th on Monday, we'll just be closed for the whole day to observe Cesar Chavez Day. Now, something I really wanted to share with you, make sure you knew about, we're holding a prom wear donation drive right now. So if you have clean, gently loved formal clothing, dresses, suits, accessories, purses, anything like that, go ahead and drop them off at the library, or you can do it at Pauline Robinson too, if that's closer to you. We will be accepting those until April 1st, maybe a little bit further out too. And then on April 11th, there's going to be a free giveaway party for teens at Pauline Robinson. We'll have snacks and drinks, music, and a photo area. So just a little something there for you to clean out your closet, and you can also spread some joy. The Idea Lab has a jewelry basics workshop on Saturday, March 28th. The registration for that is open. It's for children 8 and over, and they're adults, and anyone else who would like to join. We also have a Dungeons and Dragons play session for tweens. So that's ages 9 through 13. That's going to be March 29th on Sunday. So if you have a tween that's been interested, talking about it, please bring them by. It's great for beginners. It's great for experienced role players. And then lastly, next month on April 11th and April 12th, we'll have an escape room. It is a Clue Mystery Mansion theme. So you'll join the characters from this beloved game and solve a mystery and escape the mansion. Registration is going to open on March 21st. And that's all I have. Do you guys have questions?
Thank you. Can you also share all of that in the, oh, you already have, in the chat. Thank you.
Of course, thanks.
Questions? All right, thanks for that update. And then we have Layla from Bluff Lake with, I think you're our final community partner.
Cool. Sorry, my screen's a little fuzzy for some reason. I'm not sure
Oh.
why. I'm just gonna put it on off video. I'm not sure why my camera's gone a little wonky. Yeah, so I really just wanted to let everyone know that the Cabins Improvements project is complete. We had our grand opening just over a month ago. So if anyone is coming to visit Bluff Lake, the main entrance is back open with the new parking lot, and we're just really excited to be able to get folks like using the new trail going down into the site. And there we also have our lobby hours, which have limited hours right now. We're really just trying to see how much like visitation it gets like at different times so that we can kind of schedule our volunteers and staff. So that's another volunteer opportunity that didn't used to be an option. So, we'll have folks who may want to be docents and might want to, use that as an opportunity to talk about Bluff Lake and talk about the stuff that they love. So if that's of interest, please let me know. And that also means that we have a whole lot more programming that will be coming up. So please check out our website for that. But if anyone does have any questions about like accessing the site in the new ways, if anyone's having any issues with like the new gate system, which we've been trying to make as simple as possible, please just let me know. Otherwise, yeah, we're just really excited to have the project finished and open to the public.
Great, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Any questions in the room? No. Okay, all right, thank you. And so with that, we'll move to the next part of our agenda is the guest speakers. We'll be talking about the Xcel Energy franchise agreement. So first up, we have, instead of sharing my screen with the CPUN slide deck, I will be sharing the guest speakers slide deck. So we have Denise Maes on behalf of Xcel Energy.
Okay, if I present from here, folks.
Yes, yep.
Great, okay. Well, just as she said, my name is Denise, and I'm here to talk about the Xcel franchise agreement. And of course, I'll give some detail and information about what that is and what it all entails. So on this next slide, I do want to emphasize that
Sorry, it's
all right, that's great.
thing. So I need to. Okay.
Scroll. I'm here, of course, to talk to you about the franchise agreement. I hope that you realize that my scope here is much broader. I'm here to listen to some of your thoughts, your concerns, your questions, as well as to share information and to answer any questions that you may have. And I understand that that may happen after Jeff Ackerman's presentation, but I'm also open to anything you ask as I go along, if that's acceptable. So on the next slide, let's start with what is a franchise agreement. Frankly, I don't think it's necessarily intuitive that anybody would really know what is a franchise agreement, but it's basically a contractual arrangement between the city and county of Denver and Xcel. And that franchise agreement or contractual arrangement governs the manner in which these two entities work together. So it governs, for example, how Xcel uses city streets, rights of way to deliver utility services to the residents of Denver. In exchange for us providing these utility services to residents of Denver. Then there is a franchise fee, that's included in that franchise agreement at 3%. And that is approximately $30 million a year. That $30 million Xcel pays to Denver, and Denver puts that money into its general fund to use as it wills. It's part of Denver's general fund dollars. The current agreement, we have one now in place. You voted on it in 2006, 20 years ago, and it now expires at the end of this year on December 31st of 2026. And so therefore, we are here in front of you to see if we can get a new franchise agreement that would start on January 1 of 2027. On the next slide, I want to be clear about what the franchise agreement is and importantly, what it is not. So firstly, the contract, as I mentioned earlier, it governs how Xcel operates in the Denver public right-of-way. There's a requirement that Xcel build and maintain a reliable infrastructure, restore power as quickly as it can, and to coordinate emergencies and buried power lines. It's a 20-year commitment, but that 20-year commitment is not without some obligations. There are audits that are done independently. There are reporting requirements that Xcel has to come before the city to discuss. What it is not a decision on rates, on electricity, utility rates. That is something that is handled separately by another state agency known as the Public Utilities Commission. The second thing is it is not a decision on clean energy goals. That is something that is done by legislative bodies. For example, right now in front of our state legislature, there are multiple bills that are trying to get at certain clean energy goals that are now moving through the state legislative process. The City Council of Denver, as also an independent, a legislative entity, can also make decisions on some of these things. It is not a decision on climate plans. And although it's not, the franchise agreement itself is not a decision on climate plans, one of the things that was negotiated that has not been done before is an E&I agreement, and it's E&I for energy and infrastructure. And I'll be discussing that too. It's different. Xcel has never negotiated, or the city and county of Denver, they've never negotiated a separate side agreement that will address some things that are more appropriate in a side agreement rather than being put into the franchise agreement. So next slide. Here's what's in it for Denver as far as what's in the franchise agreement. So one of the things that's key is that Xcel is obligated to relocate utility lines in the case of any development in Denver. So take, for example, 16th Street, what's happening on Colfax. When there ever is a need for utility relocation, it is Xcel's obligation to have those relocations done. If you think about the close to the $1 billion bond that we passed in the last election, there's going to be a lot of projects that will undoubtedly require utility relocation. And again, that is an obligation that is Xcel's to do. There's also a set aside of 1%. It was 10 million last year to bury power lines. And this $10 million, to be clear, is only associated with public projects. I think we all can understand or realize in today's climate, we wish there could be more things that could be placed underground. That's not feasible for lots of reasons, but at least here there's a 1% set aside, approximately $10 million to do that for public projects. Xcel also provides $8.3 million in energy assistance. That was last year. And what that energy assistance actually looks like, it's helping individuals pay their Xcel utility bill if they cannot pay it themselves. It also is in terms of energy efficiency upgrades for certain households. And then there's also some more of that energy assistance that's in this separate E&I agreement that I'll discuss in a little bit. The other thing that I think is important for you to know is that there is a commitment that Xcel has to hiring local people. So some of the folks that you see working on utility lines, doing work on relocation, those are people that are here in Denver. Or the metro area for sure. There's also a commitment to hire as contractors women-owned and minority-owned businesses, and there's also a support for going out to contractors that have unions. So there's a commitment to doing work with unions. Again, there is the franchise fee of $30 million a year, and the other reason I just want to highlight that the reason why there is a 20-year franchise agreement and why I'm here today to talk about a franchise agreement that would become effective in January is because it does guarantee a certain level of continuity. And it'll just be, there will be no interruption in service. You won't even notice it. It'll simply be continuing the same service. On the next slide, we'll go into just a kind of a summary about what the franchise agreement obligates Xcel to do. To, again, restore power as quickly as it can, to be there for emergencies. And I learned recently that oftentimes Xcel, in the event of fires and such, is actually sometimes the first entity to arrive at the scene so that they can shut down electricity and gas that may actually worsen an already bad situation. There, again, there's the 1% dedicated to the burying of power lines, and then again to emphasize the accountability, independent audits, review by city government, and just reporting out in a transparent way. Now, here's the companion agreement. This is this energy and infrastructure agreement that I mentioned earlier. Again, this is a separate agreement that has never been negotiated before. It is something that was done between the city and county of Denver and Xcel with some input from certain stakeholders. So what this E&I agreement does is, one, is it provides for an E&I group. And that group is intended to be made up of individuals from the city and individuals from the company, from Xcel. And the idea there is so that those two entities, who are the ones that are subject to the franchise agreement, can coordinate on a multiple of items. There is a part of this E&I group are also some advisors. And I'll probably go into this in another slide a little bit more deeply, but the advisors will include individuals from business, from the housing world, environmental advocates, consumer groups, and technology advocates that can provide research, feedback, ideas, thoughts, proposals on things that should be happening in the E&I group. There is, again, public accountability to this agreement as well. The co-chairs are obligated to meet twice a year with the city advisory committees and the public, and also to publish substantive concrete roadmaps and timelines of what programs the group has obligated to undertake. The next slide gives a little bit of the focus areas of what is the intent here, or what are going to be the areas of focus that this E&I group will be working on. One of them is an equitable rate design. There is right now the city and Xcel have filed together with a PUC on an equitable rate study. And the idea there is to look at the concept or the ideas of doing different rates for different customers. There is an element of affordable housing. One of the issues here is, I think we've all heard that Denver does have an obligation and a commitment to provide affordable housing to the community. And one of the issues that has come up a lot is sometimes because Xcel isn't part of the development process per se, that sometimes it's a little bit behind the development itself. And so the idea here is to create more coordination so that utilities are ready when the development is ready. That's the idea here. There's some grid planning that will prepare Denver's electrical grid for what we see as the future in electrification. That is actually going to grow. We want it to grow. And so there are things that we need to do to upscale the grid in order to allow that to happen. There's also a provision for innovative technology. In particular, we highlighted this ambient loop energy downtown. I don't know if many of you are aware, but there are portions of downtown that are actually on a water heating system, cooling and heating. And that can take up a lot of water, a lot of unnecessary energy. And so there's an idea, or we should explore technology innovations to replace that. That's just one example. There are many others. Again, 5 actually kind of relates to number 2. Xcel is one of the probably one of the highest volume customers, if you will, for permits. And part of that is because Xcel, just like anyone else, needs a permit in order to go and install utility connections and do what it needs to do to provide utility to to residents or to any development. And so how can we cut some of that delay so that, again, when the development is ready, the utilities are also ready? So that's the idea behind that. And then, of course, we want to do more on the sustainability front and coordinating with the city on rebates, programs, and all of the goals that Denver has on the climate side. So those are the substantive, the real meat of where I think things will happen in this E&I group. On the next slide, just to kind of summarize, I think really everything that I've talked about so far is if there is no franchise agreement, then it really is on Denver to relocate utility lines and services. And that will fall on the back of Denver taxpayers, Denver's general fund, as opposed to now that it is a burden of Xcel's. There is the risk of potentially losing the franchise fee that I mentioned earlier. There is no 1% that I mentioned earlier about going underground on public projects. There would be no E&I agreement and no formal agreement on affordable housing, energy assistance, or workforce diversity. It is really that one agreement, the franchise agreement, that makes those things mandatory and obligatory. The next slide is basically what is the timeline. So right now we're in this winter and spring outreach with you in the community. It is Xcel's obligation, or a self-imposed obligation, to reach out to the community, to all of you, to various RNOs. I can't even recall what number you are of RNOs that we have gone out to visit to talk about these 2 agreements, get your thoughts, get your input, get your questions. And so that is something that we are now doing and hope to do, or well, we intend to do it through the April and May timeframe. Sometime in the summer, we don't know exactly when, but there will be a city council vote. So this is important for you to understand. The franchise agreement itself goes to you, the voters, to say yay or nay. What city council decides is whether to send it to you, the voters. So that is there's 13 city council members. They will vote on whether or not to refer it to you, to me, to all of us to vote on. We, of course, hope they will. And then in November, when you have already a packed ballot, there will be a question, hopefully, about whether or not you support renewing that franchise agreement for another 20 years. And then come January 1 of 2027, the agreement simply, the franchise agreement is renewed and things just go on and you won't even notice a blip. The next screen is just who I am, and we have this email account, Franchise Outreach Team, gmail, and it is, there might be questions that you will think about after this evening, or comments or questions or needs or whatever, and we please direct you to send them to that email account. We check it on a regular basis. We try to get back to you, and there might be a lot of questions here this evening that I won't know necessarily the answers to, but I certainly am committed to tracking them down and getting answers to you as soon as I can. So that is basically the sum of my presentation, and I'll turn it over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. That's very formal. Well, I think if folks are okay, I was going to hold questions until after Jeff presents also, and then we can have a discussion and questions then, if that works. I'm keeping a list of questions I have.
Great.
So thank you very much, Denise. And so I will move to the other thing I'm sharing. Oops, except I'm at the end of it. So hold on just a second.
Right. Yeah,
All right. And so just
I'll talk from here if I can.
yeah,
And then
together Colorado.
about 8 slides. Some of these are in animations, so they come up in parts. But Jeff,
I don't know if I have animation.
it's fine. We'll come up at once. I mean, just me too. It'll come up in sequence. Jeff Ackerman. I live in Central Park with all of you. I've been here about 18 years. My daughter moved in after that. She's bought her second house now in the same HOA as I am. Sometimes that's wonderful. That means I see the dog a lot. And then my mother moved in 10 years ago into independent living, then assisted living. So we're deep into Central Park. That I'm here on behalf of Together Colorado. I'll tell you about that on the next slide in a minute. I also am unique in my relationship to this is that I chaired the Public Utilities Commission for a term. Before that, I ran the state's energy office. Before that, I worked as staff at the Public Utilities Commission. Before that, I worked at Xcel at one time. Before that, I've worked with low-income programs. I've been in this area for way too many years, but I have an appreciation of what this topic is all about, and that's a unique interest in that. You heard what it is. Our question for you tonight is also to add on to what Denise said of why should we care. So to the next slide, just tell you real quick, it's all there. See that you don't need the animations. Together Colorado, I want you to understand, is nonpartisan, it's multiracial, it's multi-faith, it's based on faith communities organizing that's done this for decades. And it organizes around the simple principle that in public policy, in the civic life, we should bring human dignity back into the center of those conversations. That's also always what we're looking at. That's why it connects well to faith communities, but not exclusively. But statewide, it is 220 congregations, schools, clergy, faith leaders, and others, because faith is taking on, even in itself, an evolving sense of what that means. We are nationally a member of an international group called Faith in Action, which is just a larger version of that. So I want you to know that, and I want you to know that that's where I'm coming from tonight. So onward to tonight then. As you heard, there's 3 parts of the conversation, actually. You heard Denise do a very thorough job of telling you what a franchise agreement is. I don't need to go back through that. You've heard about the energy and infrastructure agreement. There's a third piece the city has put forth that came out of the conversations last summer, because this is the second time we've been talking about this, where the city has put together what it's calling its energy advocacy agenda, its commitments to itself and to us as the public. 3 things going on. The big red arrow points you to where we're really paying attention here. And that is that inside the E&I agreement is the potential to frame and identify community needs, community issues, and a way for the community to resolve those issues. It's really building on what Denise said. You heard kind of what it is and what it isn't. It's a great slide to put that in. It's sort of a relationship check-in is what we're doing here in a way between us as the people who live in Denver and take service from the utility and the utility. That's kind of what we're putting on the table, saying, how is that relationship going and what should we be asking of it, especially in this nature of problem solving? So to that, before I go to the next slide, the other thing you should appreciate is why we're doing this time, is that the mayor and his team at Xcel and their team negotiated a lot of this and then brought it to the city council about 11 months ago. And then it worked its way through committee to the full council. And we, as folks on behalf of the community and behalf of those saying, have the questions of human dignity been brought up, said no, this system, this last attempt had just shy of no community involvement. You didn't hear about it really a year ago, other than maybe an email from Xcel to RNO saying, we have a draft agreement, it's on its way to the city council and we think you should like it. We're saying we need a lot more in that relationship. So that's why we're doing this second time around. I'm going to use the rest of my time to talk you through kind of what we think that process should look like and how to engage you in that. So to the next slide is really the notion that from our perspective, we see this as an opportunity to look at utility service and how it relates to human dignity. So obviously that has an implication to those least able to pay, but not exclusively to that, but that there is ways that the utility as a unique creature, a creature created by government, a creature, although for profit, has a unique purpose and service to society, that we need to look at how that service is being delivered. And that we are trying to then, inside that I&E or E&I agreement, is look at what are the needs, what are the issues that we all have as residents, citizens, members in Denver, that when you think of, down to your perspective, when you think of Xcel, when you think of your service, electric, gas, and et cetera, in your home, your neighborhood, your business, whatever, it's kind of a first quick assessment of what comes to mind when you think about what you want from the utility, what you're getting, where are the touch points, where are the points of stress and strain, what's working well, what could be done better. That's really what we're trying to look at, because this is a once in 20-year shared opportunity for us to ask that question and check in on our relationship. That's really what we're doing. So to the next slide, what we're saying is from a problem solving point of view, what we would propose is there's going to be issues of service quality. We've heard, for example, from folks around the city, as we've talked to them, of where service quality is not only a frustration, but it actually impedes your ability to be a business. Folks in South Broadway have told us about this, that you can't run a dental shop, it's not a shop, a dental office, and have intermittent electricity. It's a real problem. It's probably a problem drilling on your tooth. Service affordability is obviously something near and dear to our heart as to what is affordability. I appreciate the assessment of looking at studying different rate designs, but saying, how do we move on that? How do we prepare for extreme weather over the next 10 to 20 years? If we're not already seeing weather extremes now, great chance that in 10 to 20 years, it's going to be a lot more difficult to live here than it is today. Hot will be hotter and cold will be colder and wet will be wetter. That's the nature of a changing climate. How are we prepared, both those who can prepare to hunker down in your home and those who can't? And if you can't, what is the obligation of Denver and Xcel to say, what do we do in those circumstances? And then what are the options in terms of customer choice? And we're 20 plus years or more into customer choice in terms of those who can, self-generating rooftop solar, now moving into storage of your electricity, now moving into automobile, other things like that. What's the next iteration of that in terms of what other choices do you want from that system? The question marks speak to what we'll get to in a few minutes today, and what is it you're thinking about in terms of what else you want from this relationship? I would also contend on the point of affordability, it's a little sticks in my throat a little bit because of my years running the state's low-income weatherization program twice, working with Energy Outreach Colorado. When Xcel says that 8.3 million that goes in last year, that 8.3 million was your tax dollars and our fees we paid through our utility bills that went into low-income assistance. Xcel's, that's not Xcel's 8.3 million, but it implies Xcel's 8.3 million came to the city. They're the conduit for that. So let's be clear about that. Xcel is adamantly making sure their money doesn't go into low-income assistance. That's been a point of contention at the legislature and will continue to be. We're not here to extract a pound of flesh. But we're here to say what is a reasonable thing to expect from your utility when it comes to their role in the affordability or inaffordability of electricity and what we can do about it. So just want to make that point clear. Just a couple more slides. You already heard a bit about this. I'm saying in service quality, for example, we might want to be looking at how to demonstrate, because what we're looking at in the E&I or I&E agreement is, could you create a pilot project? It's not saying we're going to totally change rates or change how service is done, but we could learn something in a pilot where we ask the utility to both be engaged with their time and talent and at times with their money. So what does the service quality pilot possibly look like? Maybe again, in South Broadway where they've actually resolved some of that, or where else? What are service metrics? Affordability. Are there other innovative ways to do bill payment assistance? Are there other ways to dedicate resources like community solar to the poor? What are ways we could do that together? But the point is, use this as a moment to identify a problem. Think about ways we, over the course of a few years, study solutions. And as those solutions evolve, then take those to the Public Utilities Commission. and standardize those across the service territory, or take them to the legislature and say this should be the law of the land. That's what we're looking at in each of these as possible pilots. Pilots we could launch in 27, and then also looking for a commitment to say this is 20 years. We're not going to sort out all X number of pilots in the next 60 days, but we should have a commitment to 20 years of identifying problems, committing to designing solutions, and funding those solutions and getting them implemented by Xcel and the city, learning from them and moving forward on a repeated basis and saying that's truly a better relationship between Xcel and the city. On behalf of the state, as the big player in the state, what could we learn 20 times for the next 20 years? How do we prepare for extreme weather? We're learning around Metro Denver and beyond the use of like resiliency kits, putting resources in front of people of self-generating plug-in solar, or if you have pharmaceuticals that need refrigeration, giving you a small refrigerator that can functional for 2 to 5 days, things like that. That's what we're looking at there. Or other customer choice options. What else do customers want? People with solar who maybe own 2 homes in Denver. How do you move your credits from one home to the next? Or what are the other ways that are more evolving now of how you transact your extra electricity with your neighbor? What else could be done to say the system could do more if we wanted it to do more? So, and onward, basically, we're at a point right now to say, we're not here to give you the solutions. That's the antithesis of this conversation. We're here to say, you should be thinking of what problems you want to solve, but even more so, forcing through your city council a commitment to 20 years of problems and 20 years of financial to solve them, to identify these problems, to saying to the utility, we want you at the table. And that's what we started with the I&E agreement. The language in that agreement today is all very soft. It's commitments to meeting. It's commitments to talking. You know, if this is marriage counseling, I wouldn't say I was at the end of my relationship planning and counseling here if I said, yeah, we'll commit to going back to the house together. We got to commit to doing real things together here. And so how do we make that commitment stick and be genuine here? So we're saying, I'd love to hear from you tonight. If you would like to work more with Together Colorado as an individual through your faith community, be part of what we're doing, we'd like you to then connect with us. Obviously, we know who our city council people are in this part of town. They're engaged. We want to stay engaged with them and stay engaged with us. That's what we're looking for. Appreciate your time. Let's talk. Thanks
Much. Thank you to both of our speakers. Yes, we'll open this up now for questions. Go ahead.
I'm wondering if you take a smart home and you scale it to a smart city, you probably are using AI or something to that effect. So I'm wondering if there's any way would be responsible for implementing AI to make these decisions, to incorporate or start some of this change, and how can we as citizens be informed of that implementation of AI? I want to know what AI is doing in my city or what's going on, and who would be responsible, and how can we as citizens get that information back to us? I mean, it's just.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I wanted to do, if I could, is introduce Jim Alexi here. We're both working on this together, so there might be some questions that he'll answer. And in fact, I'm going to let you answer this one.
Can I think answer your
Because
question.
I'm not sure the question.
Is it how is Xcel using AI for just
How will it be, and how will the public be informed of that to know the impact of it? You know, is it affecting jobs? Is it, are we really leveraging it to the best capacity, or is it getting in there as a slot?
Just in general.
like a community standpoint? What are the
Scaling.
that's a great question. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, in some ways, it kind of has some assumptions that aren't really the case right now, but it's something that we can make a note of, like, hey, the more and more you Xcel start to rely on or use AI, inform your customers and your residents. I think that's certainly fair. I don't think it's used in any widespread way now, so that's why it's a little bit hard for me to grasp that. But this AI thing, I've always said it. These sort of technologies are always growing at a faster pace than what regulators are doing to rein it in. So I hear you, definitely.
I'm surprised that your answer. First of all, my name is Brian Loma. I'm the Hazardous Materials and Waste Diversion Advocate for Green Latinos Colorado. I'm surprised that the answer on AI and smart technology did not have some kind of at least acknowledgement of smart grids, which move electricity from one location to another based on demands, because that would have been a very simple introductory answer to how AI is being used in electric in the city and county of Denver. My concern in this topic, I have a few. I understand that there's problems with electricity access on this side of town. And I say this side of town because I live in Southwest Denver, and that we were supposed to have a Coca-Cola bottling facility move out to the airport that was going to be doing 100% post-consumer plastic or 90% post-consumer plastic recycling of bottles, so that the bottles of beverages that people drink came from recycled plastic that was recycled locally, and that the beverage the bottler pulled from that contract because they did not have access to sufficient electrical needs to be met to run their facility. And since then, Denver International Airport has also said that they don't have sufficient access to electricity for the Denver International Airport to run their facilities for the next 30 years. And that's why an RFP went out that proposed bringing a nuclear power plant to North Denver. How, since those conversations have enacted, are we looking at where this agreement meets the needs of Denver International Airport's access to electricity without bringing a nuclear power plant to our city?
So I can't really give you a quick answer on the bottling
How
thing.
about a short answer?
Well, I'm going to get there, I promise. I will tell you right now, and this is Xcel Energy did a presentation in front of City Council that said, without a doubt, without any conditions, without any exemptions, Xcel can serve the growth of DIA for the next 30 years. Now, I was at the same meeting at GVR where it was implied that there was a question mark of whether or not Xcel could do that. There is no question in Xcel's mind that it in fact can. Now, the fact that DIA, has opted on its own through its own director and manager to look at alternative energy providers, that's fine. That's on them, and they're more than welcome and to do it. But that is not because Xcel is not committed or unable to provide that energy. It surely can, without doubt.
What happened to Coca-Cola? Because that
I really don't know.
Because that commitment's like 7 years ago.
I think what happened is some level of negotiations broke down between all parties. So I don't think it was a one-sided issue. I've read some of the same news accounts you have, and I'll get more information. I don't know if you have anything more, Jim, to add to that, but that's sort of the sum of what I know. But it certainly could not be because Xcel cannot provided energy. Maybe it wasn't doing quickly enough. Maybe it wasn't going through the permitting process. I honestly don't know the definitive answer to that question.
So I know you're negotiating this agreement with Denver. At what level across the state and other places do you negotiate franchise agreements? Is it at county? Is it city? And are those other agreements public? Like we could go and look at what other franchise agreements say?
I'm sure they are public. For example, there is similar negotiations going on in Glendale and in Broomfield. Those two also will be on the ballot in 26. In 26 at the same time the Denver one is. So yes, these franchise agreements are negotiated, and they're negotiated based on the user, right? So like in Glendale, it's all the residents of Glendale. In Denver, it's the city and county of Denver. Broomfield, it's the city and county of Broomfield.
Okay.
Sure.
I have a couple of questions just mostly for clarification. On the, I guess, are the stakeholders, who are the stakeholders who are putting together the franchise agreement and the E&I agreement that will be going to city council? I guess, like, who are the parties negotiating it right now?
It's so the primary entity that is basically overseeing everything. And she's moving this down.
Okay.
Infrastructure, transportation, infrastructure, so they are the key. There's also individuals with the mayor's
Office itself that are working on this. There's also been input, most especially on the E&I agreement from CASR, which is the sustainability office of the city and county of Denver. And then there are definitely sub-city council members that are, keeping an eye on it as well. But I think the actual negotiations are Dottie, the mayor's office, and Xcel. And then there is the working group that was Jeff made mention of it. Xcel is not part of that. I don't really know what's happening in that working group, but my guess is they'll have things as well to add.
I sense that, and Liz might have an opinion on that too, on behalf of Casper. But that the franchise document itself is seen as basically still in effect, or still in the frame it was offered a year ago. There's not a lot of being pushed on franchise document itself, other than at times some parties want to know why 20 years, why not 20 years, things like that. The franchise, which is the heart of this, seems to be not really touched. It's the infrastructure and energy agreement, which a lot of the conversation will head toward, and that works in companion with the third document I mentioned, which is the energy advocacy agenda. And the two work together in a way that one is trying to figure out what can be negotiated between Denver as a city and Xcel of hard commitments. What are those commitments, and where's the line where those commitments are more than what is reasonable to ask inside of a franchise? And then the agenda is the city's commitment kind of to itself and to its citizens of what it will do to carry out those same objectives. So those two things are both on the table in different ways.
I think Chris.
Yeah, just a quick question, Denise. So when the council rejected this last year, what has changed from Xcel's position in terms of concessions or changes since that rejection, since you're coming up again to the council on this?
Good part to one of the things that I think Jeff to a little bit is I think Xcel
to be careful that it didn't do enough of this. It didn't do enough of coming to you and talking to you and doing that true community outreach to hear what community had to say. So that is the biggest difference, is you are seeing me and Jim here, and it in so many other, we have written to all RNOs, 170 some, so we can do this kind of outreach. There is something substantive. One of the things that I really appreciate about Jeff's comments is there's lots of ideas, which is why there's an E&I agreement, because there's going to be more people than Jeff that have ideas. That is the place to funnel them. That is the place to put them. And so the E&I agreement is something that happened anew. There were changes to it, but honestly, in some respects, that E&I agreement came too quickly, that there was not enough time for this.
Just following up on the E&I agreement comment, I guess, are there any financial or budget commitments associated with E&I? Built into, like,
no, not like a certain dollar amount. No, and I think part of it is because we don't know what are the things that they will come up with. Again, like Jeff gave a lot of ideas. I don't know what will come out of that E&I agreement that will cause or need costs and put. So that's why there is no actual set dollar amount. But I understand what you're saying about to do some of these.
Is there a mechanism for ensuring there will be budget commitments related to what comes out of the E&I discussion, discussions that come from it?
If I may add to that, in Denise, I think in your comments too earlier in your presentation, you made it sound as if there had been no companion agreement 20 years ago. There was not this kind of companion agreement, but there was a companion agreement 20 years ago. It committed to a hard dollar amount per year of Xcel to projects, to services. I think at that time was in the neighborhood of $250,000 a year over 20 years. So there was a companion agreement.
Well, that money is still in there.
But you said there was no, I'm saying there's the precedent of a companion agreement and a precedent of.
I meant to this extent.
Right.
Sure.
To this extent, it's much bigger. And I think to your point, Liz, acknowledging that we can't figure this all out in the next couple of months of what those, nor should we figure out 20 years of possible. But I think there is a reasonable opportunity to commit to some minimal level of financial obligation on behalf of Xcel that would then work with whatever the city can put forward into that to support these kind of pilot study projects that actually try to solve problems. Got a hand behind you too. Two hands.
Oh, just a real quick question. What is the practical implications if the franchise agreement isn't renewed? There's a bunch of Xcel properties sitting in these right of ways. Like what is the practical implications here?
One of the slides spoke to that. So on one of the things that I mentioned is right now, it is an Xcel obligation to relocate utility infrastructure whenever there's a new project. I mentioned.
I understand. I mean, in terms of the existing infrastructures feeding all our houses in this area and all over town and stuff, that those power lines are either above ground or below ground, but they're in the right of way, which is at the core of what this franchise agreement is. So my question is, what happens, practically speaking, on January 1 if this is not?
Well, the thing is that you go ahead. I mean, Xcel will continue to be the utility provider. So that's number one.
But it would slow down just projects. I think Xcel pulls more permits than any other entity in the city and county of Denver.
Sure.
So like anything when I do something, it's simply a permit pull and work its way through a process. So like there could be projects or actually slowed down. Yes.
And then there'll have to be a lot of negotiation and discussion between Xcel and the city about when all those things happen and how.
Right.
Whereas now, it is just a given. It's the obligation of Xcel.
The last thing I'll just add is more editorial. I'm an architect by trade. I've been dealing with public utilities for a very, very long time. And one thing is universal is y'all are not very easy to work with from the development community. So I'm glad to see at least an acknowledgement for affordable housing, but encourage it should be all development. There should be more, seamless more.
There has to be, and I'll tell you, sir, that I've gone to like a lot of these neighborhood organizations and talk to people, and that comes up a lot from individuals like you. And part of it is, Xcel is not part of the permitting process. When you go to community planning and development to do a project, Xcel isn't in that mix. So Xcel will hear about it. We don't know really when. And then they have to pull the permits and go through the same process. So I get it. And that's why I think there's a commitment on both sides of how do we coordinate and do that better.
Substantial.
Does that include like large development, like projects that qualify for like large development reviews? Is Xcel not at the table for those?
No, I mean, it's largely a zoning and planning question.
I would quit because like when I submit a site development plan, it does get routed to Xcel.
Right.
So Xcel is at least in the loop that this building is theoretically.
Yeah, it's just the timing of when they're brought into the loop.
Okay.
Can tie back to.
Well, I apologize. We're actually 15 minutes over on this. So I was
Can I
wondering.
do it like 30 seconds?
30 seconds.
Okay. So in tying to your questions of vision, right? There's 200 Denver public schools. Just talking about these neighborhoods that are being built. The lines and transmissions are not there. You can't put in 500 houses with no solar power because there's no electricity and grid to manage that. So when you're talking about what the vision things look like, that maybe should be brought to the table to be negotiated. Those are the thoughts I wanted to throw out there.
Thank you very much. I know, I see a couple of other questions. Are these questions that we could submit by email afterwards and then share responses when we share the recording, Kathy, or?
Kathy doesn't look happy.
I don't trust this whole process, so I don't trust that either. So I will follow your leadership with this.
Okay.
This is not a power.
I was gonna say, if we can have a either very quick question, comment, less than 1 minute response. And
how will we know that what you've committed to will actually happen? And this E&I group just sounds like it's coming to talk about issues. I don't see commitments. I don't see money. I don't see authority to make sure things happen for affordable housing for climate, like the past agreement had with the companion. So the lack of the companion agreement gives me deep, deep concern. And I see the profit so much for Xcel. So I'm skeptical.
Yeah, what are the checks that it's just go to the franchise agreement, sell it, see, kind of difference the price. It's a lot of things.
I see where you're going with this, but
Yeah, and there are provisions in the E and I agreement that there is a oversight and there is a reporting out. So it's not as if this entity, this E and I group is just, talking about stuff. They have to come with milestones, concepts, and provide for some of those things. And so that is intended to be the accountability. And again, I think the problem with the money is we don't know what those projects are. I don't know that Denver is in a position, given its funding right now, that it would want to obligate a certain amount of money. But that should be talked about and be part of the conversation.
Yeah, it's primarily trying to get Xcel to commit to a minimum amount and commit to.
Which we have.
And I don't see that in there yet of
Oh,
dollars.
not for that, but for lots of other things.
I see a commitment to dollars, a commitment to a process, a commitment to actually delivering on projects. Because right now the commitments are to discussion and to engaging and to offering advice.
Those projects are.
So
I'm happy to hear.
Yeah, but to commit to a process that's more than the words to say we'll show up for the meeting. That's the problem. Xcel many times is committed to show up for meetings. I've been there. It's we will jointly commit to getting X number of projects implemented and funded on your.
Well, I think the problem with that practically is how can you obligate, we're going to do 10 projects, but a couple of them are really huge that take a long time. That's why
it's minimum.
That's why there has to be fluidity in the E&I agreement so that we could figure out what are the best projects. And I welcome you, Jeff, and lots of others. I mean, you gave some ideas here, but people have other ideas too. So we can't say we're going to do Jeff's projects in 5 years. Let's hear what all of the ideas are. And that's the purpose of the E&I. And there are obligations on that E&I group to report out, to be accountable. And that is built into the agreement itself.
There's no deliverable obligations yet.
No, because we don't know what it is.
You can still commit to delivering something. You can commit to something.
Okay, well, and tell me what that is. I mean,
you get that's the rub right now is this is your chance to ask your utility to make some form of commitment because you'll get this chance 20 years from now.
Well, and we need Denver. We can't just do it on our own.
You have E&I, you're in 8 states. So do you have, with other big cities, so do you have E&I agreements and franchise agreements in these other states, in these other big cities that are working or have some?
I don't know about
track record.
I don't. So does Minneapolis is agreement.
Minneapolis does. That's
Minneapolis has a really good example. It's actually a shorter agreement than this.
Okay.
And very
Xcel. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
we
that
have places where we can look.
I know. She's like,
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No. I think these are excellent questions.
There might be side agreements and other called something else that do other things.
Yes. So I just want to thank both Denise and Jeff for coming. Thank you all for the thank you all for the very active conversation. And clearly we have more questions. So
email and please share it around.
If you could, please, we will share that. We'll also be sharing in our newsletter that goes out on Monday. We'll be sharing a recording of this presentation and slide decks linked as well. So again, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for all the work you're doing in the community.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to stay in touch.
Yes. So we'll take a 5-minute break, just or maybe a 2-minute break actually, and then just move on to, what we can. I think mostly talking about mailboxes. All right, we're back. We're back for the word hour, which is now not an hour. It's more like half an hour.
My two pages could just be, people should just look at them and review.
Yeah, well, I'll send out the slide deck, treasurer's report. There's emails. Somehow lost the emails that you had sent.
Okay.
Must have, I'll add it back in the slide deck. There is one just interesting thing, the permitting, the email from Community Planning and Development around extending the period that folks like have their building permit before it expires. It's being expanded because people are having trouble getting financing for their projects, it sounds like, or there are other timelines. So it just seemed like an interesting economic indicator that the city is responding.
So is it that
That one did get forwarded around, but I thought it was important enough to.
Yeah, no, I thought it was good for you to highlight, and I apologize for having deleted it by adding another. I thought I was adding an additional slide, but clearly I just typed over it.
Is it that,
Go ahead, Jack.
I was gonna say, is it that the building permits are taking so long to process that the developers are running into problem with financing, or they get the permit, but they don't finance?
Yeah,
So it's the city's permitting is taking so long. Oh, I thought it was that the financing was also taking
it's a combination.
longer. Yeah, it seems to be both.
If the city's too slow, then people's loans fall through.
Well, there's that.
Not getting an answer in time.
That's wonderful.
Yes. So anyway, and apparently I guess they're using AI to try to make it faster. Like, we'll see.
If I could understand why the city's permit, I'd be out of a job.
Yes. So if we can move on, because we have to do this very quickly. But Jack and Matt and I have been on an email thread. We're on an email thread late last year, kind of talking about mailbox break-ins. But I guess we could just start with raise your hand if your mailbox has been broken into in the past couple of years. Raise your hand if it's been broken into more than once. Mine was twice in about 4 months, just like this past week.
When you say broken into,
Not broken into.
when you say broken into, I think it's
In our case, I talked to our mail carrier.
Yeah.
And it wasn't broken into, it was, the key was stolen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
ours was
yeah,
like
stolen.
broken.
We have the outside thing with 20 mailboxes, right? So the key
Yeah.
was stolen. All 20 people had their mail stolen.
Wow.
Just in our little thing. And she said, talking to her, she said, it's a real problem. I asked her, has anybody been arrested by the Postal Service for this? No. No.
I think I actually did.
Let me provide some background on this, and then can I share my screen?
Yes, I let you do you want, I'll stop sharing mine.
Yeah, and so it's a pretty complex challenge. So kind of as Lieutenant Hines was talking about, and let me give you something to look at here. This is called a cluster box unit. These the model you see here is the old plastic version that the USPS essentially gifted to Forest City back in 2001. There's then a newer version that's a metal material that the MCA installed when it took over the mailbox portion of this operation. And so these boxes, you would think, are owned by the Postal Service. I would think they were owned by the Postal Service. Every piece of contract says they're owned by the Postal Service, but the Postal Service says they're not owned by them. Instead, they say the Homeowners Association owns those mailboxes. So we learned that about a year ago, and have since been playing a little catch up in dealing with these, because all of a sudden there were about 1,600 of these cluster box unit CBUs that we had to take care of that we didn't realize we were supposed to be taking care of. That said, the cluster box unit has these individual lockers in it with an individual lock, and then it has this master lock here that uses that arrow key, right? Every mailbox in the city of Denver uses the same arrow key. Wow. And so when keys get stolen, as has been the case, the Postal Service's solution is to get their law enforcement arm called the Postal Inspection Service to find the people that stole them and take them back. That's the strategy. And so they do a pretty good job, but then we found out that people made copies of those keys. And so the issue continues. And so what we're seeing are kind of two types of incidents. The first is somebody has an unlawful arrow key. They are opening these boxes, they are clearing them out, and then they're saying goodbye. That's a problem. We don't have a good solution to that problem because the post office there just isn't a solution. There's this new, what we call the modified arrow key, or the MAL, which is being deployed slowly. Those MAL systems cost about $400 each, whereas a traditional lock costs about $12. And so from the Postal Service's perspective, they can only deploy those resources in certain ways. The other problem that we see is something like what I would refer to as a mailbox being broken into, which is when something like that happens. When the mailbox itself is physically broken into, there was a lock, somebody drilled through it to open that box. In this instance, the MCA will come and we will replace this box, these cluster box units. It's a pain in the neck because then I have to get everybody a new set of keys. But that's the process that we are doing. In calendar year 2025, we spent about $110,000 replacing these boxes. They cost about $1,500 each. That total boxes that we touched, 56. There are about 1,600 of them total. And so about half of those are this old plastic material. We have a new metal material that is a lot more tamper resistant. Let me find you a good picture of the metal material. And so that is, I mean, that's where we're at, is that we have a ongoing issue, which is these, this predator stuff. So this is a metal material that you can't drill through as easily. And so what we have are old boxes that are plastic that are susceptible to theft. And then we have a separate problem, which is the bad guys got their hands on these arrow keys and are getting into these boxes.
What if we just remove the boxes? Post office going to do the board.
Well, I pitched that idea to them, and they told me that is not how the neighborhood was designed to operate.
It operates fine. We have lots of sidewalks.
I would think mail delivery would be like at midnight, maybe. I mean, I got these and it's still late, but you can imagine going door to door, like, how long that.
Get a certified piece of mail. They won't come to your house to deliver certified mail.
So that's kind of what we've done over the past year or so. I've learned a lot more about mailboxes than I ever needed to know, and I have made friends with a lot more special agents of the United States Postal Inspection Service than I thought I would ever need. The problem we run into is, say they catch these people, the bad guys, we'll call them. Mail theft, sure, it is a federal crime, but it is a rather low-level federal crime. And the United States Attorney here in Colorado has indicated that he is more focused on prosecuting narcotics traffickers and potential terrorists than he is mail thieves. And so he is declining to charge the individuals that are arrested. The police, as you heard Lieutenant Hines say, have some other charges that they can use, but then we get into this fun pointing contest between the DA who says, no, that's a federal charge, and the U.S. Attorney that says, no, that's a state charge. And then essentially what happens is the individual sits in jail for too long and they're released because no charges were filed. And then that person disappears out of the world and maybe a warrant gets issued for that person's arrest, but now we need to go track that person down. And again, it's a theft charge, which is not a priority warrant, so it just sits there until maybe one day they get pulled over and arrested. I'm not trying to seem doom and gloomy here, but we just don't have a lot of good solutions to this problem. Yes, sir.
I have a question about the cost of those locks.
Yeah.
Is that per box or per?
It's per lock.
Okay. Wow.
Or each like box of 12 is like $12.
No, that would be for the
arrow key.
that
Just the arrow keys.
would be about $400. If we talk about those individual locks, which we will come and replace for you, those cost $125 each.
James.
And I think in an email you had said that the MCA has spent, like the financial impact of repairing the boxes was $93,000 or so.
I have some, the updated numbers I have for you. We finished 2025.
Yeah.
And spent 110.
Okay.
110,330 some dollars on those. And that's 56 boxes.
Jack, at one point, I heard that the arrow keys were zip code specific. And the arrow keys are just.
It's basically, well, it's based on postal service zone, the PSZ. The PSZ in Denver is Denver. There are other areas, I will use some of our mountain communities where the municipalities will be combined into a single PSZ. But those communities, they just make you come to the post office and use PO box. So it's a whole different situation.
So is that 110,000 that you spent last year to upgrade these plastic mailboxes to the metal ones? Okay, so that's not necessarily a recurring cost, or there's like a lot more that still need to be upgraded.
I replaced 56 mailboxes.
So that's,
we have 1,600.
yeah, so that is
plastic.
$110,000 was to replace 2% of the actual number of boxes in the community.
Yeah. So if we were to solve the problem, it would cost about $6 million.
Instead of
that is solving the problem, $6 million is putting them, making them all metal.
That's solving the problem.
Right.
Just drilling into it. That does nothing about that guy has the key and just unlock the box.
Well, like when someone drills into it, I mean, instead of replacing the whole thing, could just that part be like 3D printed and you just replace that one section? I don't know. Like
those plastic boxes really just, the solution is to replace it with metal. We have not seen a successful break into those metal boxes.
Is there, there's
the
issue of the arrow. I was just gonna say, there's the issue of the arrow keys. I guess, does the MCA have, is there a plan in the budgeting to kind of phase in, replacing, instead of it being reactive, say over like the next 5-year period, we'll be replacing the plastic boxes with these metal boxes over time so that it's kind of just built into it and not just reactive to theft.
There is not a plan.
There's no plan.
The current strategy is to fix things as they break.
Can it be revisited where USPS in contract owns these? Like, can that piece be?
The way we found this out, if you want to hear a really fun story, the way we found this out is a small child climbed on top of one of these mailboxes. That mailbox fell on that small child. Attorney that advertises on TV sued everybody that they could think of. And it was the court's determination that per all of the gobbledygook, your local HOA is responsible for the management and maintenance of that box.
Wow.
And that was not appealed at all.
The insurance companies took over at that part. And it became cheaper to write a check and move on than it did to continue with the litigation. So yeah, I'm not trying to be doomy and gloomy here. We have spent the better part. We've spent the better part of the last year trying to come up with solutions here. The best solution we've been able to come up with is when the boxes get broken into, we replace the boxes.
So is this going to be like a key driver and MCA dues going up, or?
I don't, I mean, I don't set our budget. You can ask Matt that question. But I mean, if you want new mailboxes, there's a cost to that. And my response would be, I either need more revenue or I need to not pay for something else. I didn't mean to throw you under the bus there, Matt. I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, again, those are the realities that we're faced with.
Could the MCA make a decision since we own these boxes? Could the MCA?
It's a strong term.
Okay, so could the MCA, since we sort of are obligated to maintain them, which implies some sense of ownership, but
we would dispute we have ownership.
Okay, but could we take over the whole key issue as an HOA?
No.
No, we have to acquiesce that part of our ownership to the Postal Service.
So the MCA owns every part of that box
except
for the master key. And federal postal regulations, under fear of death, say that you shall not touch the arrow key, or you can face a penalty of not less than 10 years in the federal penitentiary and a fine not to exceed $110,000.
But then we also know that the local law enforcement, the federal law enforcement won't take those cases.
Will they come after the MCA if we just take over the like?
Well, but the
I'm
problem
sure
is then you wouldn't be able to get your mail. Is the problem, right? Because that's how you get your mail. The mail carrier comes, they take out their key, they chain it to their belts, and they go.
This seems like a crazy problem to be having in 2026.
I guess, does anybody have a sense, like inter-neighborhood wise, like does Lowry have the same kind of cluster mailboxes? Do they have the same issue?
Yes.
The same problem?
It's a citywide problem.
So I'm just wondering, like, because the question that's before us as an RNO is like, what, if anything, can we do? I mean, and clearly it sounds like it is difficult to, I mean.
I mean, we've spoken with Senator Bennett's office. We've attempted to speak with Congresswoman DeGette's office. Both have referred us back to the post office.
Check your mail more often.
Yeah, that's what they tell you when you call the postal inspection service. They say, "Oh, we'll tell people to check don't leave mail in the box overnight."
Well, you have them broken into like before I can get to my mail in the afternoon. So it's very.
The other thing is I lived in 3 different places in the neighborhood. 2 of the places have the boxes at the end of alleys where no one can see them easily. Place I live now, I sit in my office and I look at not 2 boxes, but 6 boxes because somebody got smart on the north end and started putting them in more.
Very.
I mean, they did that so the mail carrier wouldn't have to drive further. They just kind of consolidated them. But yes.
But that, and like my neighbors are like, because my house faces them, they're like, will you make sure your Ring camera, has it? And I'm like, well, no.
Post office.
Yeah, I'm not going to be on post office watch. But it is good to know that the newer ones have metal and they're less likely.
Yeah, we've not seen any successful break-ins and again, I use the term break-in to mean the physical tampering of the box of those metal products. It's only been the plastic products. As far as a break-in or the one that I get in my email very frequently is somebody cracked open my box. I'm like, yes, we cracked it open. They put a key in it. They turned it.
I mean, I get very little mail, so this is like a naive question, but like what are thieves going for in the base?
Stealing checks and cashing them. Like that.
I mean, it's identity theft.
Our check from the district day's office got stolen out of Brian's mailbox 2 years ago. Like, who's the demonstration?
Hoping something's in there of value.
That's really what it is. The whole scam is to just take it all, and then they essentially they pay what I'll call the foot soldiers to go bust into these boxes. They take them back. They pay the kids. They have all the mail. They see if there's anything valuable in there. They take people's 1099s and their W-2s, and then they'll
say my husband lost a $100 academic text that like he had ordered that was like part of like what got stolen. So
the one in the most recent chain was that one of the credit unions was cashing
Yes, yeah.
without valid IDs. So what I think they will do is they will get the check, they'll make a fake ID, and then because they have everything they need on the check to make a fake ID, because the bank teller's doesn't have a way to scan the ID. They just, hey, show me your ID. If the ID matches the name, then you know and in defense of the credit union, they don't have a system to, they'd have to then tap into the driver's license. They don't. Well, they do, but not for check cashing.
I would watch your bank account fees increase.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, this is a very depressing conversation, like, as we go around in circles with what's difficult about it. But I do think that, like, one thing we can't do, this is like part of what we exist for is like communicating to folks, and it is an issue. So I think, Jack, I know that the MCA had a page has a page on the dealing with mailbox stuff, but some of the information on it is a little out of date. Is there a way of providing kind of an updated, like an update on this issue and what the MCA has been doing to address it, and also what the conversation with the USPS has been?
Everybody should sign up for Enforcement 3.
Yeah, I agree.
That should be one of the things that it's a USPS has a free service called Informed Delivery. And every day you get an email that says, this is all the mail that came in your box.
It's like a picture of your.
Yeah, all of it's going to come. And if you have any packages, you're waiting for it to let you know what's arriving that day.
So then, like, for example, I know that I get a check every month. And I can't change that. I need to get a check every month. But when that comes, I walk across the street.
It's gotten there.
It got there that day, and I go get it. And that would be the one thing that we would do is we should say, here's the link. Everyone should sign up.
That's great.
No more often.
It's also the mailbox maintenance form.
Yeah, I mean,
MCA
that looks
postal inspector.
Yeah, that page is up to date as far as the information is concerned. But it's
yes.
The other problem we run into, we have had luck with the Postal Service updating those locks to the MAL locks, right? That's that modified arrow lock. At boxes where there have been multiple submissions to the Postal Service of mail theft. And so the other thing I would encourage people to do is report the mail theft, because then that will put a data point in the system. Box gets however many, that will go on the list of, let's put a new lock on this box. If all 12 people in a box report the mail stolen, I think they're going to be like, something's going on here. Versus just saying, someone stole my mail. Well, did you tell anyone? Well, no, it doesn't matter.
Okay. All right.
I wish I had better news, but this is the reality that we're living.
No, this is very helpful information. And it's good to have. I think that as a follow-up, and it's almost 8:20, so we can stop this soon and just move on to a look ahead. But I think that in our next email newsletter, I wanted to include the information on who to report it to if you do have a break-in, but both asking for the repair from the MCA, reporting the theft to the postal inspectors, and also information on signing up for informed delivery, I think are very useful pieces of information. And then in terms of other next steps, it's relatively unclear, but I think we can invite folks if they have any
Jack, could the MTA commit to put that same information in one of their blasts?
Yeah, and
Because you're sending it to many more people.
yeah,
We have gone out with our with information like that in our blast, and I put it in the front.
Probably just.
It seems like it's a good periodic.
Yeah. I
Be like a yes, like a ongoing column
missed my
called Mail Mayhem.
Well, they have like every month the DA's office sends out like, here's the latest scams and frauds.
Yeah.
And so
Here's what's happening in Central Park with your mail.
So I personally said we should write. I've asked for a long time to write a column in the front porch each month about all of the bizarre things that happen around here.
I think that's great.
But the front porch people told me no.
You can just
so popular. Yes.
That'd be a fun column.
I mean, like, especially during the summer when we've got just nonsense and chaos occurring in the streets at night because people don't supervise their children. I mean,
oh well, we have.
I can write.
To say the e-bike, the e-bike panel.
That's exactly what it should be.
A reality show.
Oh, during the summer, like on Friday and Saturday nights, I don't get very much sleep because our alarms are just going off all night. Somebody, my boss, decided that my phone is where all this should be.
We can, kind of.
If you want to just keep calling it, that's fine. I'll just throw my phone out the window.
This is such a modern day issue because this is the first place I've ever lived where there were community mailboxes. I don't know if it's just living in an old neighborhood where.
Well, I think in the East Coast you have a lot more older developments that wouldn't have that.
Like I was friends with my mailman back in Connecticut. I was.
You can become friends with your mail people here.
Yeah.
Like you say certified mail. I live across the street from the mailbox. I never get a package put in one of the community boxes. The guy always walks it across the street because then he doesn't have, because then he could use it for somebody else. Yeah. So the mail people are very nice.
Yeah. It is also standard operating procedure for the Postal Service to be very secretive with this information, particularly with their own employees. There is some thought that perhaps there's some inside jobs going on and that there is some intentional spreading of misinformation to identify where some of that is coming from, which means that when you see people posting on their Facebooks that the mail carrier told me, it's probably a lie because the mail carriers are being lied to as part of this process.
Well, all right. Well, thank you very much. We'll at least follow
here for it.
Next newsletter.
Conspiracy too.
I have a feeling this is not the last discussion we'll have about this, or the last we will hear about this for the community. So thanks. I think that sorry guys, I'm gonna have to just share out the meetings and events look aheads. There are just some upcoming dates, particularly in April. I just learned tonight that the Rotary Club, who joined us for our January event, is sponsoring a screening of the Join or Die documentary that the INC did a screening of last year. And so Lawrence here at the MCA asked if we would like to have a table at that event. And it is all about community involvement and community engagement. So it is, I think, definitely an event that we would want to have attendees at and also tabling at. So if it is doors open at 6:30, time is 7 p.m. I think it's like about is it an 80 to 90 minute documentary, something like that?
Yeah.
So I would say, including setup and takeout, it's like a 6 to 9 p.m. Commitment for anybody who would like to table. And then if you wanted to attend, it's shorter than that. But I think this is definitely something that we would want to participate in. So that's April 10th. If folks are available to volunteer at that to table, we have these wonderful flyers about joining the board or just about Central Park United Neighbors. And we'll also have reusable grocery bags from the city as swag to give away. So we will have tabling materials. So come see me afterwards to volunteer. Our community meeting on April 21st is the Safe Streets and Education Committee's panel on e-bike safety and kids. Carol is traveling right now, so she's not here to give an update on it, but I would just encourage folks to invite, if you know folks who have kids with e-bikes, or other families. I think that outreach for this meeting, we should actually get this in the school newsletters that go out each week. And so I believe our flyering spreadsheet that we have for when we did the community survey includes contact information for each of the schools in the neighborhood. So we'll need to email them and ask them to to share this. And then Heather, you are helping organize some of the, helping with the campus cleanups.
We tagged along on Willow's campus cleanup this past Thursday. I was the only Central Park. So remember that. So next opportunity is April 26th. Isabella Bird has like a day of service that we can join in, and they're gonna have service projects going on all over the campus, picking trash and other fun things. So
and it's Earth Day right around that.
And it's right around Earth Day. So get some gloves and a bucket and come.
What time is that? Do you have a time?
It is from 1 to 4, I believe.
Yeah, and it's also on our website. I think we have just, we're not organizing it, but we'd like to join in with that effort. So you'll find it on our website. And then our May meeting is just the CPUN annual forum. Elizabeth, I know you had talked about now that the weather is getting insane.
Yeah.
Talking about planning an outdoor yoga meetup. So we can.
I was thinking June 13th, which is the second Saturday.
Okay.
Is that too far out? Were you looking for something sooner?
No, that's fine. I think that would be fine.
Like May gets crazy with.
Yeah, it's
everything.
Yeah,
graduations.
I agree. So I think June 13th, and then we can
go ahead
on that. But and then I think for our June meeting, right now, folks are getting on the ballot either by petition or through the caucusing process. But the primary elections will be the ballots will mail out in June, I think.
Beginning of June.
At the beginning of June, and then at the end of June is election day. So for our June meeting, I just wanted to do, I think, an elections overview and potentially have the city auditor, because we've talked about having the city auditor join us. So just finding time for that. And then just a tentative save the date, because we haven't locked it in yet, but the mini golf fundraiser is going to be in September, either September or October of this year, but likely September 20th. And so we'll be meeting with the CPBA in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully with Flight Code to lock down a date for that. So that's all. And it is now 8:29. So go ahead.
May, I'm more than happy to talk about development. Since
yes,
no one left at Brookfield.
I was going to ask you about that, and I think that the shops at Northfield reached out to Carol that they have some announcement coming up, so we might have an update from
There are
as well.
Yeah, I mean there are 13 ongoing projects right now. They're all apartments. And an oil change, lubricator, something or another, which is going right next to Flightco. So you can get your car lubed and then go across the street and get yourself
the beer.
With it. So
exactly. So okay.
Somebody got my joke there. Thank you.
Yeah, Jack, if you can do the development update during the May meeting, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, and so I mean so we've got 715 apartments at RK Mechanical that now have been approved, and
yeah, we haven't heard any update on that.
And what Alex when are they coming?
Yeah, I mean we can touch on all that, but yeah, the ARC project's been approved. We've got more apartments coming in over there-ish.
Is the arcade mechanical being annexed into the MCA or like how?
Oh, that's a very fun, controversial topic, Liz.
I know, but
It's a very controversial topic. Because of, yes, very controversial. There's Brookfield, the transit oriented development is going to be a townhome product instead of a high-rise apartments product. Because well, I mean, the short answer is because they can be 3-4 bedroom units instead of 1 or 2 bedroom units, and that's what we're needing in the neighborhood. The RTD parking lot has been acquired or is in the process of being acquired by an entity called Ulysses, which will build 800 affordable, the lowest level affordability housing units that'll go there as well. That should finish out the TOD. You've got a bank and a oil change. It's called Wolverine. Going next to Flightco Tower in the vacant parcel by Natural Grocers. And then there's the parcel 8, which currently is just confirmed to be Whole Foods. And then we've got Apartment Palooza going on in the Northfield and Dallas area, an apartment. Yep. And then we have that'll be 2,200 apartments when it's done.
Other cars.
And then we're having Apartment Palooza across from the high school at 56th.
Okay.
Any update on the northwest corner of Central Park and 56th? That's Commerce City.
No, because they don't have to come talk to me because it's not in Central
That
Park.
huge vacant area there.
I got.
Do you have a contact? I mean,
we don't even know who owns it. It's an LLC out of Texas. So it's.
I heard it was whoever owns the Rapids.
Like in front of Dick's Sporting Goods, that whole
the
area?
corner there. If you look, there is a proposed development of a whole shopping center along that from like Central Park Boulevard to Verbinia. That isn't parking lots, so it's the dirt, but
Yeah, like I said, they don't, since that's outside the development, they don't come talk to us. We can do some digging.
Look at like the planning department for Commerce City to see if.
Yeah, I don't have any friends in Commerce City, so.
Sports and Entertainment owns the Rapids, so I wonder if.
Yeah, I'm sure the parcel is, it's owned by an LLC that's based out of Texas. I'm sure that it's owned by an LLC, which is owned by an LLC, which is somehow owned by Dan Kroenke. That's usually how that goes. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Okay.
Ask our friends in Commerce City.
All right, well, it is now 8:33, so we can end this, but that's a preview of coming attractions for the.
Got maps and diagrams.
Right.
Great.
Okay, thank you so much.